Hi, welcome back to Corey Teacher. This is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025, and this will be our first ever advanced news wrap-up. We've been doing intermediate and a more basic level up until this point, so if those seemed a little bit too easy for you, you are in the right place. If this one seems a little bit too difficult, we can check in the links down below, and you'll be able to find intermediate and basic level news there. So grab something warm or cool. In my case, I got something cool again. Peach iced tea. I don't know why I'm obsessed with it. It's getting colder here, but still can't let go. All right. We got our 6 sections, of course, and we're going to start with our big headlines. Starting with Gaza. On Monday, the UN Security Council finally voted yes to the American 20-point peace plan, passing Resolution 2803 on November 17th to authorize an international stabilization force and mandate a transitional administration with a credible pathway toward Palestinian statehood. The broad strokes, there's an immediate ceasefire, and multinational stabilization force is moving in under a board of peace to oversee the enclave at least until the end of 2027. And any Hamas member who permanently lays down arms gets amnesty and can either stay or leave safely. Within hours of this announcement, Netanyahu was on X firing off posts telling every country in the region to expel Hamas entirely and let Israel finish the job of demilitarizing and de-radicalizing Gaza. Hamas shot back that any foreign troops who try to disarm them will be treated as occupiers, neutrality or not, rejecting the whole international guardianship mechanism as an imposition on the Strip. Same entrenched positions with no hard deadlines, and the October 10th ceasefire is still being violated constantly, literally daily these days. Still, the fact that the resolution passed at all, even though Russia and China abstained, is the strongest international push in months for something that looks like a political off-ramp, giving real effect to that earlier Israel-Hamas agreement. This is all according to the UN's official website. Across the Atlantic, President Trump's approval rating just hit the lowest point of his second term, 38% in the new Reuters Ipsos poll. A new point drop that's left his net approval underwater amid a 4-day survey wrapping up yesterday. The cost of living crisis is crushing people. Everything from food to housing to fuel, literally everything for everyday use. And only about 1 in 4 Americans think the administration is handling it well, with even Republican support dipping to 82% from 87% earlier this month. The ongoing mess with the Epstein files isn't helping either. The White House keeps dragging its feet on full release, and even Republican support dipped 4 points in a single month. Some are even breaking free and demanding that the files be released, or making some statements that then the party line decides is not good, and they have to retract those statements. There's a lot of nonsensical things being said, both in the news and by official lawmakers, and it's a bit of a mess right now. It's hard to know exactly what's going to happen with this. Pocketbook issues are brutal right now, and the midterms are already looming. This could be the first real sign of GOP discontent bubbling up 9 points overall since the term began. This is according to Reuters and several other sources. But the big bombshell domestically, at least in the US, is that the administration officially wants to dismantle the Department of Education, announcing 6 new interagency agreements yesterday to shift core functions and break up the federal bureaucracy for more efficient delivery of programs. This is what their argument is. The plan is to scatter the pieces, job training programs to the Labor Department, for example, school lunches to agriculture, makes sense, I guess, Native American schools to the interior, international exchanges to the state, and even K-12 oversight heading to labor as part of the accelerated restructuring. The official line is slash federal bureaucracy and give control back to parents and states. Critics, Elizabeth Warren loudest among them, call it a deliberate gutting of equity and accountability, especially for poor and minority kids, robbing the students of opportunity and leaving vulnerable programs in the lurch. Student loan oversight moving to Treasury has a lot of people nervous about repayments suddenly getting nastier. Lawsuits are being drafted before the ink on this law has even dried. This is a very problematic issue at the moment, and one that I think will get a lot more coverage in the coming months if nothing is done about it. Time for our vocabulary break. Amnesty is a politically timed pardon. Basically, we won't lock you up, promise, if you do X, Y, or Z. Ceasefire is an agreed pause in the shooting, usually while everyone reloads their arguments, but hopefully not reload their guns, but we know how that works out. Bureaucracy is the slow, expensive machine that government becomes when too much red tape is stretched across some functions. However, the real meaning of bureaucracy at the base level is just the minutia, not minutia necessarily, but the paperwork process of getting things done. Bureaucracy can get too heavy or too dense, but bureaucracy in itself is not negative. But in recent years, the term bureaucracy has become quite a negative term. Time for a sip break. Make sure our throats stay dry. To make sure our throats are not dry. Now into the world of sports. The Oklahoma City Thunder are making the rest of the NBA look absolutely silly right now. Monday night, they hung 49 points on New Orleans in the first quarter alone. Franchise record, never done before for their individual team. And cruised to a 126-109 win, which is insane to see the point numbers there when you are usually used to seeing baseball and soccer scores. With Chet Holmgren dropping 26 points to lead the charge against the reeling Pelicans. That's 6 straight victories, every one by double digits, keeping OKC unbeaten on the season so far. Thanks in no small part to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 30-point clinic. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren did their usual damage, but the surprise packet was Isaiah Hartenstein. 16 points, 7 boards, 6 assists, 4 steals. The guy was literally everywhere. OKC might actually be a problem this year if this goes unchecked. Now in the world of college hoops, number 19 UCLA threw 2 freshmen and a transfer straight into the starting 5 and absolutely buried Sacramento State 79-48, improving to 4-1 with 4 Bruins in double figures to seal the non-conference route. They opened on a 16-5 run and never let the foot off the gas. Defense was suffocating. Opponents shot 36% and the bench was deep enough that the game was literally over by halftime. Even as Sacramento State's Prophet Johnson notched a double-double with 13 points and 10 boards in the loss. And the classiest news of the week, something that I feel like was a long time coming, Roger Federer is headed to the International Tennis Hall of Fame class of 2026, the least surprising election in sports history by a long shot, but one that still drew out the tennis greats to celebrate the Swiss legend's 103 titles and record as the first man to claim 20 Grand Slams. 20 Grand Slams, 103 titles, 237 consecutive weeks at world number 1. Newport is already planning an entire wing dedicated to that one-handed backhand. And the way he made the sport look effortless. With the induction ceremony set for August 27th to 29th next year in Rhode Island, it's about time. As for our sports vocabulary, we have a couple of maybe easier terms today. First, I want to talk about the word streak. It's a run of wins that makes the fan base go wild. A rout is when the final score honestly feels like bullying. It's when you watch one of those LG games, or let's not get too contentious, but when you see one of those games where the points just keep going up and the fans of the other team just go ahead and go home, that's kind of a rout. Induction is an official coronation into sporting immortality. It's kind of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in sports. Now let's jump into Korean news. Seoul just jumped aboard the wildest AI project on the planet, Stargate. It's a U.S. brokered deal to build the biggest cluster of data centers ever out in the UAE desert, a $22 billion behemoth targeting up to 5 gigawatts of capacity. South Korea is bringing memory chips, raw computing power, and a hybrid power grid that mixes nuclear, gas, and renewables, even tying in joint nuclear energy exports to fuel the whole thing. Samsung and SK Hynix have already signed the first contracts. President Lee Jae-myung shook hands with Mohammed bin Zayed. Zayed smiled for the cameras during a business roundtable and basically declared that Korea is going all in on becoming an AI superpower, calling it a chance to build future growth engines together. Phase 1 is a 1 gigawatt campus run by G42, OpenAI, Oracle, NVIDIA, the whole 9 yards. North Korea, predictably, is having a meltdown over the new U.S.-South Korea agreement that lets Seoul build nuclear-powered attack submarines, slamming it as a serious development that'll trigger a nuclear domino phenomena across the region and accusing the South of secretly lusting after its own bomb, all while framing Seoul as Washington's puppet in their joint drills. Yesterday, KCNA ran a long piece screaming about a coming nuclear domino phenomena across the region and accusing the South of secretly lusting after its own bomb. Standard Pyongyang rhetoric, but the timing is spicy with joint drills ramping up and the green light for Seoul's first fleet of subs has been seeing red. Yeah, it's a little bit tense right now, but as someone who's lived in Seoul for a while, I would say that this is nothing out of the ordinary. Lighter note to end the section, Pinkfong, yes, that Pinkfong, baby shark, just IPO'd in Seoul and the stock rocketed more than 60, singing, threw me off a little bit. Just IPO'd in Seoul and the stock rocketed more than 60% on opening day, pricing at the top of its range to raise 76 billion won, around $52 million, before settling around 39,600 won, turning that earworm into a $400 million business empire, even as first half revenues dipped slightly this year. Somewhere, a children's song is now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Never underestimate the do. Yeah. Yeah, heard that song a lot. Our vocab for today is domino effect. One fall starts the whole thing falling down. In this case, they believe the nuclear sub is the first domino to knock down the whole house of cards, you know? A summit is when leaders fly in, eat fancy dinners, sign lots of paperwork, kind of a big meeting between a bunch of very powerful people. Confrontational, I'm sure you've heard this word, deliberately picking fights instead of looking for handshakes. We see a lot of people like that these days. Time for a sip break. Make sure our throats stay hydrated. What are you guys drinking today? I'd like to know in the comments down below. Now to the world of technology. Europe's General Court just handed Amazon a pretty clear loss. The judges upheld its designation as a very large online platform under the Digital Services Act, dismissing the e-commerce giant's appeal and legal challenge to its marketplace being classed as a service needing stricter oversight on content and risks. That means stricter rules on illegal content, systemic risks, transparency, everything, the whole package. Amazon has tried its best to argue that it's just a shop, not a publisher, but the court basically said, nice try, rules still apply. Appeal is already in motion, though I highly doubt, by the way that pundits are talking, that will come to anything more than a prolonged legal battle. Google's DeepMind, on the other hand, announced a major new research lab in Singapore. Another sign the AI center of gravity is shifting to the east, with the outfit behind the Gemini family of models now doubling its Asia team in a year to tackle local languages and big-ticket issues like education, healthcare, and climate right from Google's Asia-Pacific hub. They've doubled their Asia team in a year and want to work on education, healthcare, climate, and all the other big stuff, accelerating frontier AI development across the region. And tonight in Washington, 2025, Elon Musk and NVIDIA's Jensen Huang are headlining a U.S.-Saudi investment forum at the Kennedy Center, hours after Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman rolls into town, where oil money meets chip money in a panel on emerging tech forces, next-generation AI architecture, and the models powering it all. Saudi Crown Prince is in town, oil money is meeting chip money, and everyone's talking next-generation AI architecture. When those two are on the same stage, we got to pay attention, especially with the data center coming up in Saudi Arabia. Everyone's talking and everyone's working together towards something big. Our vocab for today in technology is designation. It's the official label that comes with a thick rule book. And adoption is how quickly a new technology actually spreads into real life. For example, AI has been adopted rather quickly, especially in the last 2 years. I feel like just a few years ago, one of my friends was showing me one of the early versions of ChatGPT, and while it was impressive, it was lagging and its voice didn't sound very great, and the information it gave was sometimes a little bit wrong. And nowadays, it's quite powerful, and I see more and more people using it day to day. Architecture, this is usually used in buildings. However, we can use it in lots of things. In this case, in AI and in technology, it is the structure by which things are built in a system. AI infrastructure has to do with not only the physical structure of AI on the outside, like where it is actually and how it is actually held together, but also the internal components, the digital aspect of the AI itself. And now let's move into the world of science. A study out of the University of New Mexico dropped a scary line this week. Microplastics at the levels already found in human blood dramatically speed up atherosclerosis in male mice, with elevated concentrations showing up in femoral plaques and carotid arteries too, building bigger, nastier blockages and inflamed vessels that could up heart attack risks for all of us. Bigger, nastier plaques, inflamed arteries, the works, and while female mice were far less affected, which raises its own questions about sex-based differences, the real kicker is how these particles are already piling up in human tissues, like brains, at alarmingly high levels. Bottom line, these tiny plastic particles we keep finding everywhere might be a genuine heart disease risk factor in that case. Overall, the science behind this is becoming a bit worrisome in some avenues. However, in others, they're saying it's not as big a deal as some of the articles are making it out to be. However, we never know. The future is the only one that can tell us what will happen. On the flip side of the timeline, researchers in Bristol and Göttingen just pushed confirmed life on Earth back another billion years. We just talked about this in the intermediate one here recently. But I wanted to talk about it again because this is pretty big. They trained machine learning models to spot genuine biosignatures in 3.3 billion-year-old South African rocks when the planet was just a quarter of its current age, uncovering faint chemical fingerprints of microbial life and photosynthesis that lingered long after the original biomolecules have faded. The chemical fingerprints are subtle, but they're unmistakably biological. That's huge for understanding early life and for knowing what to look for on Mars, which is another story with the leopard prints that they found a couple of months ago, or this was a couple of years ago, but the announcement was a month or two ago, about the possibility of that microbial life waste product being left in what we only can discern as the leopard print markings that we find in bacteria colonies here on Earth. Scientists have tried to figure out what it was for over a year, and they said they cannot think of anything else other than the potential of ancient life leftovers. So, but this is looking good. It can be moving us towards verifying that as life having been on Mars in the past. And Japan's Fugaku supercomputer just finished the most detailed virtual mouse brain ever built. Millions of neurons, tens of billions of synapses, all wired up from real experimental data in a cortex simulation that cranks through quadrillions of calculations per second, letting scientists run virtual experiments on perception, memory, and movement without a single animal in harm's way. In collab with places like Seattle's Allen Institute, scientists can now tweak circuits digitally and watch how perception, memory, and movement emerge. This will be huge for Alzheimer's and epilepsy research without ever touching a real animal. These kinds of things are accelerating at an amazing pace. I'm really excited to see these kinds of things emerge. That kind of roadmap could let us design custom viruses that eat antibiotic-resistant bacteria for breakfast. That's the hope anyway. Making them look more yummy and making them more hungry. Just don't eat us at the same time, especially timely with anthrax risks spiking in livestock herds under weird weather patterns. Our words for today: atherosclerosis is a slow clogging of the arteries. This leads to heart attacks usually. Biosignature, this can be with plaque or other material as well. Though there's different terms for different types of plaque, as well as different terms for different types of arterial hardening, which are not in this, but the atherosclerosis itself is just the clogging of arteries in general. Biosignature is a chemical that life was here. It is a signature from biology, biosignature. A synapse is a microscopic switch in the brain. It's what works between the individual parts of the brain, the cells that reach out and touch each other and cause little handshakes, if you will. Yeah, let's get our last sip of tea in before we move into the good news. All right. The first good news comes from a massive study that came out last month, but really hit the wires this week. Global extinction rates for plants and animals have actually been falling for decades, slowing across many groups after a steep rise through the 1800s and especially early 1900s, with losses now declining in the last century thanks to protected habitats, anti-poaching laws, and captive breeding that's proving more effective than the doom headlines ever admit, especially in developed countries where rates have steadily dropped. The crisis isn't over, but it's no longer accelerating. A slowdown, not salvation, but one that shows conservation muscle is flexing and working is such a good sign. A lot of work has went into this, and it is difficult work, very difficult work, but very encouraging to see. Hawaiian pilot whales are demolishing up to 200 squid a day each, dozens to hundreds per dive, averaging 142 with a standard deviation of about 60, just to break even on energy, and the ocean is keeping up just fine. With researchers' tags and math showing the local squid stocks healthy at a total of 88,000 tons gobbled earlier by the roughly 8,000 whales without tipping the predator-prey balance at all. Researchers tagged whales, tracked dives, did the math. The squid population is healthy and the whole predator-prey balance looks sustainable. It's nice to see a marine ecosystem that isn't collapsing or falling into decline or being abandoned entirely by the local inhabitants. Now into the world of food science. Food scientists have turned sunflower seed press cake, the stuff left after oil extraction, into a burger patty with 26% protein, loads of zinc and iron, and almost no saturated fat. Tasting neutral and costing less than pea or soy protein while upcycling what was literal waste into a meaty hybrid that could quietly reshape plant-based eats. Oh my gosh, plant-based eats. Been reading for a while. Kansas growers, take note. This might be your next cash crop. Tastes are neutral, costs less than pea and soy protein, and uses something that was literally waste. This is all good news. Scaling that up could be a quiet game changer for plant-based meat, not to mention reduced waste. Our vocabulary for our good section starts with carbon sink. This is any natural system, forest, ocean, soil, etc., that pulls massive amounts of CO2 out of the air and locks it away. Bonus points if you know what the largest CO2 sink or carbon sink is in the world today. You can put it in the comments down below and I'll check it. Extrapolate. Take data from a small sample and confidently scale it up to the big picture. To extrapolate, to withdraw information and make it big. Sustainable, able to keep going long-term without wrecking the planet or running out of whatever it is that is being sustained. All right, that's a lot today. We covered our 6 topics with 3 stories in each. We covered war and peace attempts, however that bad news may sound. Poll numbers, disappearing government departments, ridiculous basketball, tennis royalty, Korean AI ambitions, baby shark capitalism, European court battles, supercomputers pretending to be mice, and a few reasons to feel okay about the future, as we always end on a good note, because that's what I like to hear. Let's finish our cups of tea, stretch, feel a little smarter than you did a half hour ago, at least I hope so. If you like, go back and listen again and see what you think. Let me know. Did you like the advanced news? I've been doing basic and intermediate up until this point because I feel like those were a bit more approachable. Those of you who can listen to advanced news like this usually can watch the actual newscast itself. However, if that's not the case, or if you like this style, please let me know. That helps me know what you guys like, and it lets me kind of guide my motivation, but my intention and what I would put my energy towards. These take a little while to record and produce, and it takes a little bit to put them together for my helper. And yeah, so just let me know. And what did you guys think about the news today? I'm pretty excited about, of course, the plant-based meat substitute is pretty interesting. Anything to get some variety and protein intake is always really nice to me. I'm happy to see that the pilot whales are doing well. But more than that, I'm pretty excited about seeing the biophysicist mapping the bacteriophage. As you may know from other videos, I'm very interested in biology and immunology. And so this one is in my wheelhouse, so to speak. But let me know what you guys thought. What's your interesting idea for the news today? All right, I'll leave it there for you guys. I hope you had a good time, and I hope you have a wonderful week. I'll catch you up next week as well with another advance if you guys want. Please, if you do like it, hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment too. If there's not a lot of engagement with this level, I'm going to return back to intermediate and basic so I can help them learn, because that's my goal here, is to help you guys. All right? All right. Have a great day. Have a great week. Have a great night. And I'll see you next time. Bye.